So, tell me about your guitar here.
I made this when I was 16, 17. I came up with the idea of having sort of a classical guitar neck on an electric guitar. And also I have little fingers, so I wanted to be able to extend the range, you know, of playability up to 30 frets, you know, and be able to, you know, actually play it, you know. So because I have small fingers, I've kind of made an art out of it to an extent. But so I extended the fret. I put a 1959 PAF pickup here, which is actually through Billy Gibbons. This was one of Billy's prototypes for the Pearly Gates pickup, which sort of over the years manifested itself into my own model, which was MJ and Seymour Duncan are the best. I've got this crazy sort of warm tone now, which I purely attribute to those guys. I mean, Seymour and MJ over there just supported me all since the very beginning of my career. Finally, I got my own pickup. This right here is a Floyd Rose, but it's just the plate of a Floyd Rose that I've used. The rest of it, I just sort of took pieces and saddle parts and filed them down by hand in order to be able to use string spacing. I don't know if you can see how the strings can be spaced. You can put them in the saddle part here, and then you can space them as you wish. In this particular instance, I've got the E and the B and the G that you pushed far up on the so that way, in essence, the strings are from here to here closer together than a normal guitar. The strings on a normal guitar, if you want to bring this in, I'll show you. On a normal guitar, the strings would be about that far apart. So now that they're much closer, the strings in essence are tighter together here, and that way it's more advantageous to be able to cross over from one string to another. It takes a little bit of getting used to if you're used to another guitar. There's also the scalloping style, which, as you can see, I've played this a little bit, but if you look at it from this top, this thing's been thrown around on stage a lot, but I don't know if you can see, the scalloping style is square. So the squareness of the scallop, you can, if I should demonstrate like this, if I push down on a string, you can get vibrato by pushing downwards on the string. I don't know if you can see that. Let me hit the notes. So can you hear that? Boom.
Yeah.
So also here, by pushing down, you hear that? You're gliding on this guitar. Your fingers realistically never actually touch the wood. You're gliding. You're sort of free floating. And in the same respect, it is a lot more difficult to play. It's a very much a virtuoso, setup. You have to know how to fret a chord. Because here, let's say, for instance, I'm fretting a chord as an open G chord, right? Sounds like a G, right? But let's say I'm a little off with my pressure, and my pressure isn't exact on all fingers, then listen to the G chord now. You hear that?
Mm.
So that's why you have to really... So when I place a chord, for instance, a lot of my chords are quite complicated, like for instance this. See that? If I'm a little bit off, the chord will sound like shit. Another thing that I've done is I've created this thing called a detention device.
Yeah, tell me about this.
This has slots where I slot the bar into different positions and essentially different tunings. You know, for guys that like that kind of, I can drop right down to that D tuning, and then I'm back in tune. So you've got kind of that whole real fum 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 fum, which again the 18s work so good on. So on my albums, I don't get to play all the stuff that I muck about with outside of the albums. But this essentially also adds an element of security in the bridge position. Because let's say I want to compensate, and I'm bringing, let's say I bring a note. See, I'll bend a G down here. Watch this. See the bar? If you come in here, I'll show this a little bit more carefully. if the bar, you notice the bar moving? See that?
Mm-hmm.
See that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, on a normal vibrato bar, which by the way is the correct term for it, it's not a tremolo bar. See, this is a floating mechanism. So I thought about that long and hard. Primarily, Brian May is one of my influences, and of course Eddie Van Halen with the bar, and Jimi Hendrix. Those are my three sort of big vibrato bar influences. So for me, this was kind of a unique way of approaching it, because my hand can counteract the balance of the free-floating bridge by using this as a crux. So that way when I'm bending strings or when I'm placing chords, I can counteract the balance by pushing. Hear that? You hear that? Yeah. So that way, not only am I floating with my left hand, which is a completely new sort of approach, but the right hand is floating as well. So most of my mistakes that I'll make are because of my footing, or because I'm on a specific stage of sliding or something like that, and because it's a balancing act. It's literally like kind of juggling. So on top of that, it works great for effects and stuff, because now, for instance, that setting, if you can see that, see the strings? See, that setting right there is fabulous for all kinds of sounds and, stuff like that. You can express yourself in a new way, because now all of a sudden the bar is being held down permanently for you, and there's all kinds of new things that you can do, new sounds that you can come up with, and new ways to express what you're trying to get across on the guitar. Next we have the tone and volume, which is very, very basic. As you can see, I've been using them. The tone is extremely simple. I just have it as a set to similar as a Les Paul. The capacitor I have on there is sort of standard. And in the back, there's all these electronics, which literally took me years to develop, and that's what creates all the sounds that I do. And I'll demonstrate this obviously when we're all plugged in, but this is a whole nother game unto itself. This took realistically I'd say years to develop. This is a push and momentary button, which I trigger with my pinky. Which I do this the pinky like that, and I control these three. I don't know if you can see that, with these three fingers. So while I'm playing, I don't know if you can see that very closely, but I'm able to control what I'm doing with the three fingers here on these three. You know what I'm saying? So that way I can control the sounds and the effects and all of the craziness that you hear on a lot of stuff in Eargasm, for instance. It's controlled essentially by that. It's just sort of a nerdy thing. The momentary push. I have here an indicator which essentially lets me know. See this? There's a little light you can see there. There's a little light going on and off. Mm-hmm. See it? Yeah. And there's an LED that lets me know, essentially that I'm rocking or I'm not. And the 30 frets, the scalloping, the nut, which is also modded. It's a different nut on there because of the width of the strings. I wanted to bring them closer together. And the other reason for that is because I wanted to be able to create vibrato on the E string. I could never understand why an electric guitar, or any other guitar for that matter, you've got a vibrato option on the B, on the G, on the D, on the A, but not on the two E's. Doesn't make sense to me, because you can't do vibrato on the E because you'll fall off the neck. See, look. On a normal guitar, but not on this. I can do vibrato on the E string. Hear that? See, and I like that. I like having that option to be able to create vibrato and be able to express myself on every string the same way with the same options. So I never quite could understand why the electric guitar was a lot of guitars that most of them, you can't do that. You can't vibrato on the high on the low string. So everything else is pretty much standard. We've got these multiple plugs for stereo in the back, and the actual neck itself. If you could see the thickness of the neck, I've worn the hell out of it, but this has been broken quite a few times on stage and off. But I wouldn't be the same. This guitar is literally, the wood is from the 20s, so there's no other wood or no other pickup or no other guitar that I'd rather play. It's more vintage than any Les Paul. The wood is older, and it has that tone of a vintage instrument with, thanks to Billy Gibbons, this Pearly Gates sort of soul, Have Mercy pickup. A Texas brother spanking the plank.